All right, let's start off with our first big story. An Abia-based constitutional lawyer, Anthony Agbazwere, has come to the defense of the Senate over its row with Customs Controller General.
He chided the retired colonel for seemingly undermining the Senate, whose responsibility, he says, is to oversee the executive. He also says acting EFCC chairman Ibrahim Magu has automatically stopped acting as Nigeria's anti-graft boss immediately his confirmation failed at the Senate.
It's lawful for a custom officer to wear custom uniform. It is also lawful for an army officer to wear army uniform. It is unlawful for a non-army officer to wear army uniform. It is unlawful for a non-custom officer to also wear custom uniform. But like I said, Hamid Ali, having been made the boss of Nigeria Customs, from that day automatically he became a customs officer. This idea and penchant for somebody, one individual, quite insignificant, thinking that he has the temerity to disobey the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is funny, condemnable, quite odious. From that point, from the Senate House, Magu ceased being chairman of EFCC. The acting capacity will elapse. That day he was rejected. That same second, he got rejected. The acting capacity would have transmitted into a full position if he had been confirmed. That same second. The idea of let me keep him and send him back again. Nigeria and the world is moving fast.
You know, it's amazing how you can use the instrumentality of law to either be for or against a particular issue. And all the sides, they all seem to be correct. When you listen to them, they're all using the law and the Constitution.
That is why a lot of people have said that the law itself, when it becomes vague, when it becomes too ambiguous, it gives room for any kind of interpretation.
Yes,
there has to be some level of specification so that there are no confusions here and there.
Well, I guess it's good that things like this happen so that, you know, you can actually go back and, yes, and retweak the law. You know, because it's when you have situations like this that there is the need to look at that law again.
Exactly. It's work in progress. Let's go on a break and then we come back to go ahead with our discussions right now. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.
All right, you're welcome back. This is TVC Breakfast. We're looking first of the case between Magu and the Senate. And some would want to add to that, and the DSS.
Okay. And the presidency.
And the presidency. Now, joining us is a lawyer, Wale Ekunusi, and also joining us from Abuja is coordinator, African Center for Media and Information Literacy, Chido Onoma. Good morning, gentlemen. And good morning to you, of course, in our studio there in Abuja. Let's begin with you, Chido Onoma. Now, so much has gone under the bridge since the rejection of Ibrahim Magu as substantive chairman of the EFCC. Now, tell us very clearly, where does the law really stand with this? Twice rejected, can he still be presented or not?
Thank you very much for having me. I think there is no ambiguity. There is no ambiguity here. Magu was screened at the Senate not for the acting chairmanship position of the EFCC, but as chairman or to be chairman of EFCC. Once he's been rejected as chairman of EFCC, I think he can continue to act as long as the president wants. He was appointed acting chairman at the pleasure of Mr. President. Mr. President appointed him and sent his name to the Senate. The Senate doesn't screen people for acting position. They said they've rejected Magu, so I think they've played their role. They shouldn't overreach themselves. They should allow the president, to take charge.
Okay.
So it has nothing, I don't think there is a problem as far as the law is concerned here.
All right. Now, Akinwale, we played a report earlier on where a lawyer said that the moment from the second that the voice vote rejecting Magu went out, Magu ceases to be head of EFCC, either in acting capacity or in any capacity for that matter.
That cannot be correct.
Okay.
Magu, like Mr. Noma said, went to the Senate for the confirmation as a substantive Senate chairman, EFCC chairman.
And it was on that ground?
It was on that ground that he was rejected. He has been acting. And mind you, this is not the first time the Senate will reject his confirmation. The first time it was before the Senate, they rejected him. He continued in that acting capacity until the president represented him. And now that has been rejected again, nothing stopped him from continuing in that acting capacity. Because Section 2.3 empowered the president to appoint chairman for the EFCC. The president is the appointer. Senate is just a confirmation body. And once it's not confirmed, the president can represent him again. Like Mr. Noma said, there's no ambiguity at all. The law is very clear.
Okay.
The Senate is performing their role, constitutional role. Nobody is doubting that. And they have yardstick for performing their role. They have followed the yardstick, and based on their finding, they say this man is not qualified. No, that's a different ball game. But to say that the president cannot reappoint him or represent him is not correct. There's no law to that effect.
All right. Now, Chidi, it's very clear that the National Assembly, the legislature, functions on behalf of the people. I mean, at least on paper. Now, when the Senate says, look, this person is lacking, there's a big question mark on his integrity, and he does not qualify, and he would pose some kind of moral burden on the EFCC, that is an institution that is seen to fight corruption to the very end. Now, what about that? Does the law in any way at all actually envisage that there is a possibility that he can be rejected and that he can be represented as many times as possible?
Exactly. The law takes clear, it's very clear on that. You mentioned that the Senate is acting on behalf of the people. The Senate is one arm of government. The executive is also acting on behalf of the people. And if you look at the officers in the country who were elected, it was only the President of the Federal Republic who was elected on a general slate. So whether you're looking at a governor or a senator, a governor was elected on the state, the senator representing in a senatorial district. It's just Mr. President who was elected by all Nigerians, and the Constitution gives him this right. So I don't think, in terms of looking at who has greater influence as far as Nigerians are concerned, I think the president has that. So coming back to your question of whether the Senate has the right, of course the Senate has a constitutional right to screen people. But we should look at this process. I think we keep going round and round like a hamster in a wheel. I mean, the Senate rejected Magu, or claimed they rejected him in December of last year based on a DSS report. And they sent a note to that effect to Mr. President. And Mr. President set up an administrative panel headed by the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice. And that report also passed through the Vice President before it was eventually submitted to the President. It was on the strength of the positive response that the President received that he renominated Magu to the Senate. So I don't think the Senate has acquitted itself well here by keep using the DSS report. I mean, there are a lot of issues one can take out of this. You can raise questions about how come the DSS that is under the presidency would report or send another report to the Senate. But even if we leave that for the time being, you ask yourself that the president has appointed someone, you said you rejected him based on a report, and the president sent a note back to you reappointing this same person, stating clearly that he's been cleared of all those things. I don't think the Senate is helping the country by going the route it's going. And maybe if we have time, we could actually go into the details of the issues that came out of that report, which Mr. Magu himself tried to the best of his ability, to clear 2 days ago.
All right, we'll certainly go into the details of the report, which the Senate is standing upon to reject him. But first of all, is there any difference between the acting chairman, the office of the acting chairman, and the substantive chairman? Is there anything different in what he can or he cannot do in the two instances? Chido, I'm asking you.
Is the question addressed to me?
Yes, Chido. Chido, I'm staying with you.
I don't think, really, it's, first of all, it's just a matter of nomenclature. I think the fundamental thing in answering your question is that once the person becomes the acting chairman, he has security of tenure. So if he's, let's say, he's screened and confirmed today, that means he has to stay for the next 4 years, unlike where he's acting, in which case he can be removed by the person that appointed him and replaced. So that basically is it. Beyond that, every other thing, I think, whether in terms of how he runs the place, in terms of the day-to-day activity, there's basically no difference between the acting chairman and a substantive chairman.
Okay, let me still remain with you, Chido. Now, what about the moral burden for Ibrahim Magu, who is hoping to become the substantive head of the EFCC? There is the integrity question.
Yeah.
Now, what picture do we paint for the international community, if in spite of the report from the DSS, that puts a big question mark on the integrity of Ibrahim Magu, and he's heading an anti-corruption body at the same time? Whether the Senate meant it for good or for ill, what does that really say? What kind of image do we put out there, especially in this anti-corruption war?
I don't think there is a problem here. There is no integrity issue. It depends on how you want to look at it. From the prism you want to look at it. If you want to look at it from the prism of the Senate, a Senate that has, with all due respect, a lot of them are people that have cases with EFCC and so on. So even the integrity of the Senate is in doubt. But let's even leave that. If you look at it from the point of view of the DSS, you also realize that the initial report, there were two of those reports that the DSS issued in October 2016. One clearing Mr. Magu and one indicting him. So if you again talking about integrity, if you look at it from the point of view of Mr. President, who appointed Mr. Magu and who reappointed him, and in all of these people we were talking about, whether the Senate or the DSS, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic stands head and shoulder above them. The buck stops at his table. So if he sees Mr. Magu as being fit to first to nominate him and renominate him, I don't know where this issue of integrity is coming from.
Right.
So rather than talking about integrity, we should be looking at interest. What are the interests at stake here? The interest at stake here are very narrow, myopic interests that are not
Chido,
the overall broad interest of the Nigerian people.
Yeah, Chido, let's put you on hold a little. We'll be back again shortly after this. And we're going out on TVC Entertainment, but viewers there can continue with the program on DSTV channel 418.
And of course, GoTV 45 and Free TV 701. You can continue to watch the show there. Stay with us.
Right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and we are discussing the rejection of Ibrahim Magu as the chairman or substantive chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in Nigeria by the Senate. And he has generated lots and lots of reaction from Nigerians and even lawyers who have been looking at the issues of the law and all of that. And we have with us in the studio a lawyer, Wale Ekunusi. He's joining us in here. We also have from our Abuja studio the coordinator, African Center for Media and Information Literacy, Chido Onuma. Now, let me, before I come to you, Chido, let me at least ask Wale this question. It is, now, there are reactions that say that from the body language of the Senate, it looked like they had even sealed the fate of Ibrahim before he came to the Senate. And even when the Senate was saying that, okay, he didn't answer the questions very well, we got a report from the DSS that morning, as the case may be, but it seems his fate has been sealed.
Yeah, that is the belief of every Nigerian, that the present crop of Senate we have may not want to approve appointment of somebody who will head the anti-corruption body and perform the job effectively. And the reason for this is not far-fetched. A lot of them are under investigation, especially the past governors who are now senators. We have more than 21 of them. They are under investigation. Even the Senate president is not only under investigation, but under prosecution. So everybody knows that, okay, if this man is working this well, what is their fate? And mind you, there is a bill on the floor of the House now seeking to increase the penalty at conviction to a minimum of 20 years. That is scary enough. We know why they are afraid. And that is the more reason they may not want to approve his appointment.
Especially when some of them have interest to recontest in 2019.
A lot. That's just it.
Okay.
All right, let's quickly bring in Chido Onuma, who is in Abuja there. Now, very quickly, at best, it's been some kind of guesswork for Nigerians trying to figure out exactly why Ibrahim Magu was rejected by the Senate. Some have said maybe there is a possibility that there's some kind of underlying rivalry between the security forces, especially the DSS and the EFCC. If you recall, there are different stands during the storming of the judges and all of that, the response of the EFCC chairman, and of course how the DSS carried on with that. Is it possible that this might be part of the underlying current here?
It's possible. Interagency rivalry in Nigeria is something that has been with us for a long time. But I think this is a very big issue, something that goes beyond or should go beyond agencies. This is an issue that goes to the heart and soul of this country. We are talking about corruption here and who heads the anti-corruption agency, the EFCC, which perhaps is the premier anti-corruption agency in the country. Just as the lawyer in Lagos mentioned, it's clear that the interest that is at play as far as the Senate is concerned, it's going to be difficult for this crop of Senate to clear Magu. As I mentioned in a program earlier, if Magu was corrupt, this particular Senate, this 8th Senate would have asked him to take a bow bow and leave. It's just his case is a case of giving a dog a bad name to hang it. As far as I'm concerned, I don't want to focus too much on the Senate. The Senate was looking for an alibi, and they found a convenient alibi in the so-called report by the DSS. As far as I'm concerned, the buck stops at the table of Mr. President. He appointed Magu. I think the presidency needs to put its house in order. If there is a problem in terms of an inter-agency rivalry, that has to be dealt with as quickly as possible. The spokesperson for the president came out yesterday saying that the presidency is waiting for a correspondence from the Senate on this issue before it will react. The whole world, not just Nigerian, the whole world is waiting on the presidency to see how it will react on this issue. Remember that anti-corruption is not just one of the key principles or cardinal policies of this government, but it's what the president is really known for. I hope there is no misstep here, and I think the president knows his onion, and he will do what is right in the interest of Nigerians.
All right, Chido. Chido Onuma, thank you very much for coming on the program. We have to let you go now. Thank you. All right, let me come to you, Wale, in here. Now, from the start, we heard Ibrahim Magu say when he was standing there that he wasn't given a fair hearing. He wasn't invited by the DSS to even answer to the allegations against him. Now, when issues like this come up, is he supposed to be invited by the DSS to answer to allegations before he faces the Senate?
You see, the fundamental principle of our legal system, the rule of natural justice. You cannot determine the fate of a man except you give him the opportunity of airing his own side. And secondly, you cannot be a judge in your cause. The Senate has made us to see this matter as fighting their own cause. And now they are sitting in judgment over their own cause. Magu said on the floor that DSS never asked him any question. And more importantly, we heard that there are two sets of reports from that same agency, but they picked the one that suits their cause. Under Section 88 of the 99 Constitution of Nigeria, the Senate has the power to investigate. Magu was sent October and November last year. They rejected his nomination. I believe if they were acting in good faith, at the time the president sent it to them again, they should have carried out their own investigation under the power, under Section 88 of the 99 Constitution. They should have carried out their own investigation. This is our finding, independent of the DSS report. They chose not to do it, like Mr. Onuma said, giving a dog a bad name, so as to hang it. They have a script, and they have opportunity to act out their script. That is just what is happening here.
And of course, I mean, how do you expect, if they already had a script, if nothing would make them confirm an Ibrahim Magu in the first place? The questions about investigating or thorough investigation that would either clear him or not would not even arise in the first place. So now, Ibrahim Magu is saying, confirmation or no confirmation, he's going to continue his job and all of that. Is there any thing that may make it almost impossible or difficult for him to deliver on his job?
In actual sense, there's nothing. Because he is the chairman of EFCC, though in acting capacity. That does not take away any power that the act has granted to him as the chairman to act. He can act fully. And another thing, there is no limit to how many period he could remain in acting capacity. It's at the pleasure of the president. He can continue in acting capacity for 4 years, for even more than 4 years. There's no law that says he cannot. I listened to the lawyer that's saying that once his confirmation rejected, he ceased to be, he's only speaking his mind. There's no law to that effect.
But are you concerned about the precedent that may be set with all of this drama going on? When we come back from this short break, we'll allow you to answer that.
Right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast. We are discussing the Senate and the passing or the confirmation or rejection of the Senate President, the EFCC Chairman, Ibrahim Magu. We have with us in here a lawyer, Wale Ekunusi. Well, he was about to respond to a question you were asking.
Yes, indeed. And my question was whether you had any concerns that we might be setting. What kind of precedents really are we setting here?
Well, the concern is actually high because the Senate is like setting the precedent that once we don't want a candidate, we do everything possible to stop that candidate from being confirmed. In the 6th Senate,
yes,
Abodi Shade was presented to the Senate a couple of times.
Over and over again.
Over and over again. Eventually, it was confirmed. I don't see Magu being confirmed by the Senate. It does not matter the number of times the president presents him. If Magu, according to them, have integrity question to answer, and based on that, they refuse his confirmation, then Bukola Saraki should not be sitting as the president of the Senate for now.
Based on integrity.
Based on integrity. He's being tried by a competent court for cases of corruption, abuse of office. That is big integrity question. But the whole rally around him, he's their boss. They want him. He's good at the job. Internationally, Magu has been acclaimed to be the most effective of all the EFCC chairmen, though in acting capacity. Ribadu did his best, but there was no major conviction in the time of Ribadu. For the first time in Nigeria history, an ex-governor is in jail for offenses committed while in office. The touted subsidy cabal, the second person had been convicted just yesterday.
Yes.
So this track record, I listened to Magu when he was giving a report of his state worship. He said for the past 6 months, over 140 convictions, several billion recovered. If a man is good at a job, what integrity question are we talking about? That is my concern. That is the precedent this Senate is trying to lay, which will not augur well for this country. If the law gives you power to do a job, you are expected to do it with the mindset that let me do justice in this case. Even look at ordinary tenancy agreement, common tenancy agreement, where a landlord gives the tenant the right to sublet on permission. There's always a caveat that this permission should not be unreasonably withheld.
True.
Okay.
So,
all right, we'll come back to all of this. Now, the EFCC recently released a statement stating that soon it will reopen corruption cases of ex-governors, some of whom are now in the Senate for prosecution.
Now, let's see some of the ex-governors who are now serving senators who have corruption cases to answer. Over 15 ex-governors won Senate seats in the 2015 general election, with many of them having cases of corruption ranging from misappropriation of public funds to money laundering hanging over their necks. Here are some former governors who are now serving senators with corruption cases to answer.
Now we have Bukola Saraki, former governor of Kwara State, was accused of fraud and money laundering in 2014 and currently has a case of false assets declaration hanging over his neck, and he is the Senate president.
And Godswill Akpabio, a former governor of Akwa Ibom State, widely known as Uncommon Governor when he held sway in the state for 8 years, is being investigated for corruption. He was invited twice by the EFCC in 2015 over allegation of 108 billion naira fraud.
And the former governor of Abia State, Theodore Orji, was allegedly linked to the withdrawal of 5.6 billion naira in cash from the state's accounts in a commercial bank against the regulation of the Central Bank of Nigeria. He was arrested and detained by the EFCC for a period of time.
Adamu Wale, former governor of Kebbi State, is reportedly being investigated by the EFCC over a 10.2 billion naira fraud. Former Ebonyi State Governor Dr. Magu allegedly misappropriated close to 80 billion naira while in office as governor between 1999 and 2007.
We also have Joshua Darie, former governor of Plateau State. He was arraigned by the EFCC in 2007 on a 23-count charge bordering on money laundering and other corruption charges. The EFCC accused Darie of diverting about 1.2 billion naira of the state's ecological funds.
And former governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Adamu, was arrested by the EFCC in 2010 for alleged embezzlement of public funds to the tune of 15 billion naira. Danjuma Aguje, former governor of Gombe State, along with 4 others, is facing an 18-count charge bordering on conspiracy and fraud to the tune of 25 billion naira instituted by the EFCC.
In Section 66, subsection 1, paragraph A of the 1999 Constitution bars certain categories of Nigerians from being members of the National Assembly. The Constitution says a person shall be unworthy to make laws for the country if he has been indicted for embezzlement or fraud by a judicial commission of inquiry or an administrative panel of inquiry or a tribunal set up under the Tribunals of Inquiry Act, Tribunals of Inquiry Law, or any other law by the federal or state government which has been accepted by the federal or state governments respectively.
Now, members of secret societies, persons with forged certificates and undischarged bankrupts are also disqualified from becoming lawmakers. Maybe our producers should go back to the last 2 paragraphs to underscore that particular point, because it then puts a big question mark on
integrity
of the members of the National Assembly. In this case, of course, the senators themselves. They do have cases to answer. Indeed. Now, the Constitution says a person shall be unworthy to make laws for the country if he has been indicted for embezzlement or fraud by a judicial commission of inquiry or an administrative panel of inquiry or a tribunal set up under the Tribunals Act, Inquiry Act, the Tribunals of Inquiry Law, or any other law by the federal or state government which has been accepted by the federal or state governments respectively.
We're bringing that for emphasis, so every Nigerian can get to see, to know that if it is the issue of integrity, some persons in the Senate and House of Reps don't have what it takes. They don't have what it takes to be in the Senate based on the specification of the law. All right, let's bring in Foladele to give us a reaction on social media now as we get along, because time is against us. Fola, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Gazi. Good morning, Wale.
Good morning, Foli.
The drama continues.
The drama continues.
More reactions are pouring in, of course. So let's see what some people are saying. Ogbeni Femi Kemafe says, Activist Connect, remove the DSS director. You can't have a government body that acts like a government unto itself. Comrade Naz rather says Buhari should allow Magu to continue acting till 2019.
Wow.
Manejo B. Timothy says PMB should make agencies under executive arm speak with one voice irrespective of their personal differences. I think Magu should be resubmitted. Kalade Mud says PMB should renominate Magu and investigate Dara. It's so conspicuous that a certain rift exists between them, and National Assembly seems happy. Kokobaya Becky says Magu is a walking definition of corruption himself. Let Buhari nominate another person. And someone did say yesterday that there are 1,000,001 Nigerians.
Yeah, so many Magus out there that can be nominated.
Okay, and the last one here from Ejele Oriere says, rescind his name. Why are the senators afraid of Magu? A pot senators calling kettle black.
Don't many people actually call them senators?
Senators, yes.
Senators.
Okay, so while in view of the fact that they're called senators, I mean, of course, we know what the Constitution says. We know that the president nominates and, you know, the senators, in quotes, have to deliberate. But like they said, I mean, from the facts that they read out, a lot of these senators have cases against them. They have allegations against them. So is it, I don't know if I should say, is it legal or is it possible to set up like a separate, say that's of course, say Magu is renominated. Is it possible to set up a separate committee to look into his case rather than having the senators who have cases against them look into his case?
Well, there is no committee that can look into Magu's nomination except the Senate.
Wow.
But the only thing people are talking about, well, which is left for the Senate to do, you can't force them on the way and manner they conduct their business. They have their own rules. That all the senators under investigation by EFCC should not participate in deliberation leading to confirmation or otherwise of Magu. Though we are saying senators, yes, but I believe there's a lot of honorable men among them.
Men of integrity.
Men of integrity among them.
Yes.
Those should be the one to sit on Magu's confirmation. I was reading some report yesterday. I heard that there's in-out fighting at the present. And the senators, because they are even saying the DSS report, some of them have not even seen it.
But you know what? Let's not even lose sight of the fact that all of these that we have reeled out, that you know, cases against this man, they're still allegations. They really not necessarily have been proved in the law court. So we need to underscore that.
Yes, I was careful to call them
still allegations.
Look, the section of the Constitution we just read, say indictment.
Yes.
Indictment is not conviction.
It's not conviction.
It's not
the
conviction.
mere fact that you've
They're
been indicted
indicted.
means you have...
This underscores the need for agencies of government to carry out their function effectively. Yeah. Now, you ask me, how did they pass through screening? By INEC. All these senators.
When these indictments have been there
hanging on their necks
2, 3 years, 4, 5 years.
Before they contested the election, how did they pass through screening from INEC?
Okay.
INEC should be alive to their responsibilities.
All right.
So who should be the one, I'm sorry, Mike, I don't have to go. Who should be the one to say, okay, these are the honorable men, these are the men that shouldn't be allowed to deliberate? Should it be the president? Should it be the Senate president?
All the people,
all
Nigerians.
the people, exactly.
The people of Nigeria should be the one to tell them. But would they listen to the people of Nigeria?
Exactly, that is the question.
Good question.
There's no gainsaying the fact that it is in the public domain, those we cannot vouch for, among them. Yes. Ask a 3-year-old, he will tell you.
But you said something that's really curious. You know, how did they pass through the screening of INEC and whoever else that should have screened them?
When they were contesting in the first place.
Tell you something that there is an institutional problem when it comes to corruption, whether it's EFCC you're talking about, at every level, everybody's, you know, robbed off on one way or another. And so maybe we're not really ready for this anti-corruption.
The people that matters are not really ready. The people that matters are not really ready. Thank God we have an arrowhead that is standing firm.
But he can't do it alone.
He can do it alone. Yeah. Look, if you even look at the combination of EFCC, DSS chairman, DG or DSS should be a member of EFCC. CBN governor, several of them are all members of EFCC under the hat.
Okay.
So DSS and EFCC should be working in tandem.
Not against each other.
All right, okay. Yeah. Fola, let me let you go now. I'll leave. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Let's go on a break and then we come back to round this off. But don't forget, the top of the hour will be time for us to go for the news update with IK. Stay with us right now.
You're welcome back. You're watching TVC Breakfast and we're looking at the case of the Senate versus Magu. Quoting Saraki very quickly, he said, "We cannot rubbish the entire institution because of one individual." I wonder what you make of that particular statement before we go on this on the news update.
You mean
the statement coming from Saraki during the screening, I guess when they had concluded.
Saraki was responding to
it.
a statement by Magu when he said that there are two contradictory letters from the DSS. How do you that talks about the credibility of the DSS, and he made that statement as to.
That is very correct. That's very correct. If two reports stating different things are coming from an agency in respect of one person, then the agency too should be checked. And this is more so that the cell report was not signed by the DG of that agency. The individual that signed that report, Mrs. Folashade Bello, we don't even know her designation.
Yeah.
Whether she's the one that is qualified or has the power to issue that kind of report. One was issued to the clerk of the Senate, another one to the SSA on National Assembly matter to the president.
Which are not the right channels if you want to
Both
address
of
the
them
Senate.
are right channels.
All right,
Okay.
now before we round, just
What
I think
happens to the plans that
time
Magu has for the EFCC? Yeah, so many
All right.
plans lined up.
So much to talk about.
Yes.
Wale, Ekunusi, thank you very much for coming on the
Thank you.
program. Thank you so much. Thank you. Nigerians will keep debating this, and it's still going to be debate for the next maybe even 1 week, except something else comes in. All right, it's time for the news update now, and IK is already standing by. IK is all yours now.
Thank you, Mike. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered France Finance Minister Kemi Adeosun and Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele to begin the process of releasing the second tranche of the London-Paris Club for refunds to state governments. He gave the directive when he addressed the meeting of the National Economic Council in Abuja. He said the move was to ease citizens' financial hardship occasioned by unpaid salaries and pension liabilities of workers. The Senate has denied Nigeria Customs boss Hamid Ali audience after he appeared before it in mufti instead of the customs uniform as demanded by the legislators. Ali, who failed to honor the initial call by the upper chamber, was summoned to brief the Senate on the already suspended policy on duty payment. Fielding questions from the legislators, Ali insisted he wasn't bound by law to wear the customs uniform, but the lawmakers disagreed. In a unanimous decision, the senators asked Hamid Ali to leave the Red Chamber and reappear before it on Wednesday, the 22nd of March, in his uniform. A former group managing director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Andrew Yakubu, has been arraigned on a 6-count criminal charge of money laundering, receiving money without going through a financial institution, and failure to declare same. Yakubu denied all the charges. The defense counsel Hamid Raji SAN prayed to the courts to grant his client bail on self-recognition. Alongside the bail, Raji applied for the temporary release of the travel documents of the defendant to enable him travel to complete his treatment. The trial judge, Justice Mohammed, after listening to both counsels, ordered that Yakubu be remanded in Kuje prison. The case was adjourned to Tuesday, 21st March, to rule on the bail application. And the House of Representatives says that March the 30th deadline for the passing of the 2017 budget is no longer feasible. Spokesman for the House, Abdul Razak Namdas, said the introduction of the new budget software and federal government's weekly award of projects are making the target unrealistic. Now, the federal government has approved the payment of $703 million that is, to agro dealers to ensure seamless distribution of fertilizers to farmers. Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Audu Ogbe, said the government is working on measures that will further crush the price of fertilizer by 50%. Ogbe said the presidential initiative on fertilizer distribution will help farmers to get input at affordable prices. And the Consumer Protection Council has given the Nigerian bottling company 7 days to furnish it with information on its controversial soft drinks. The Consumer Rights Agency wants the documents on the case filed against the NBC in court. The agency says it is to allow it to carry out investigations on the matter in order to ensure the protection of customers. The matter was first brought to the fore 10 years ago when an exporter of the drinks to the United Kingdom filed a motion claiming that his consignment was confiscated by the UK health authorities for containing excessive amounts of benzoic acid and sunset yellow. The Nigerian bottling company admits that benzoic acid contained in the drinks exceeded the UK's specifications, but argued that it complied with Nigeria's requirements. It denies that the drinks are dangerous when consumed with vitamin C. The Consumer Protection Council now wants to dig further into the matter. But that's the update now. Back to you, Mike and Ngozi.
Thank you, IK, for the update.
All right, let's turn attention to other stories now. One of the national symbols of a country is its currency. It is a source of pride to its citizens and a means of identification. Now, while the Naira is battling with its value at the foreign exchange market, Nigerians are faced with spending mutilated, dirty, unhygienic and faded notes that are in circulation.
Now, these notes go from hand to hand, this kind of unhealthy cycle. It goes on and on. Now, the Naira was introduced as Nigeria's legal tender on January the 1st, 1973 to replace the pound. Since then, Naira notes have undergone some kind of metamorphosis. Now, the average life cycle of a note in Nigeria is between 6 months and a year.
In 2007, the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, introduced polymer notes for the Naira's lower denominations, citing its durability. Now, the 20 Naira denomination was introduced in 2007 before the 5 Naira, 10 Naira and 15 Naira denominations went into circulation in 2009. But many years after, many of the polymer notes have shrunk or faded to the point where they can no longer be spent, and rejecting these Naira notes has now become the order of the day, even though that in itself is a crime. It's an offense.
Exactly.
To reject
you can reject the legal tender, but Nigerian currency notes are believed to be among the dirtiest in the world. The abuse of the Naira has continued to be a challenge to relevant authorities despite a number of campaigns discouraging the act and laws that prohibit such practice. Let's see some of these illegal practices in Section 21, subsection 2 of the Central Bank of Nigeria Act 2007. A coin or note shall be deemed to have been tampered with if the coin or note has been impaired, diminished or lightened otherwise than by the fair wear and tear, or has been defaced by stumping, engraving, mutilating, piercing, stapling, writing, tearing, soiling, squeezing, or any other form of deliberate and willful abuse. You know, all
and
this
we are all guilty of all of those.
squeezing.
Yes.
Number one, squeezing. Squeezing.
The average Nigerian doesn't really carry a purse. So.
Yeah, and wallets.
Wallets,
We
exactly.
do lots of squeezing.
Yeah. Now, these offences are punishable with 6 months imprisonment or 50,000 Naira fine, or both upon conviction. The most common abuse of the Naira is throwing notes in the air or pasting them on the foreheads of celebrators, otherwise known as spraying at events.
That has become a kind of a culture in Nigeria. We were talking about that earlier on, especially in the southern part of the country where a lot of Owambe is involved. Now, the CBN Act 2007, Section 21, subsection 3 and 4 says, for the avoidance of doubt, spraying off, dancing or marching on the Naira or any note issued by the CBN during social occasions or otherwise howsoever shall constitute an abuse and defacing of the Naira or such note, and of such note I shall be punishable.
Yes.
Well, you know, when it comes to legal language, sometimes you just, you know, clauses and commas and all of that.
Sometimes it sounds so repetitive.
Exactly.
You know. Now, another is the hawking of the currency like any other commodity, and that happens every weekend from Friday to Sunday.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, the sale of the clean bills for older ones currently goes for as high as 20% of the value being exchanged. It shall also be an offense punishable under subsection 1 of this section for any person to hawk, sell, or otherwise trade in the Naira notes, coins, or any other note issued by the bank.
Yeah. Now, once upon a time, banks used to accept torn or faded notes in return for decent ones. They now issue these kind of notes, issuing through their ATM machines and on over the counter, sometimes mixed with new ones and unfit ones.
And of course, many Nigerians, they just keep the old ones. When you want to buy petrol at the filling station,
you
just put it on.
They go collect them.
Yeah. Okay, so we're not going to be doing this all by ourselves, really. We're joined by State Director, National Orientation Agency, Wahid Ishola. Good morning, and so thank you so much for joining us.
Wahid, good morning.
It's my pleasure being here.
Good morning.
I wonder what you make of all the information we just reeled out, but let's begin this way. We do know that there have been attempts in the past by the NOA, your agency, and of course the CBN, including the police, to actually create some kind of awareness or orientation for Nigerians on how to handle the currency. But beyond coming out with that pronouncement, we've really not seen much activity as far as this is concerned.
Well, the agency, in collaboration with CBN, way back, I think about 6 years, 7 years ago,
yes,
had a massive enlightenment campaign on abuse of the Naira notes. However, I think somewhere along the line, the campaign lost steam. Understand? And I believe it is just part of our normal cultural practices, which are not acceptable. However, having said that, like you said, we are all guilty of this. You said from your intro that the Naira is a national symbol. It is something that is supposed to be treasured like our gold or silver. But what we see is a different thing. You even see some people, who believe in this myth that when you get a high denominational value Naira, like 1,000 Naira mint note, you have to tear the edge so that it will not disappear. And that is a myth. You understand? And the handling of the Naira is so bad, especially amongst the conductors, the traders, in the markets, the fish sellers,
Okada riders,
even the women folk who put the Naira in their bra.
Yeah, sometimes they do.
This unwholesome practices can lead to a lot of health challenges, hazards. But then what I think should be done is for us, all of us stakeholders, the media, NOAA, the CBN, to synergize together, to embark on massive, reawakening.
All right, when it comes to going into massive reorientation or trying to enlighten the people, we're going to come really hard on this, and we'll talk about that as we get along, because that's your primary responsibility. Let's go on a break, and we'll be back shortly. Stay with us on TBC Breakfast.